Hi guys, if you're starting uni in 2023, I've got one bit of advice for you. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through my number one tip for doing well at uni. I've been teaching at uni for over 20 years. If you do this one thing, your whole university experience will be so much better. You'll have a more enjoyable time, you'll get better grades, and overall, you'll get way more out of uni. So what's that one bit of advice? Turn up. Turn up to your classes, just go to stuff. Being realistic, I don't mean let's go to absolutely everything all the time. I just mean have as your goal to go to as much stuff as possible. Your default attitude to stuff should be, I'm going to turn up, I'm going to go to it. Okay, so that sounds pretty obvious. Why am I telling you about this? Why am I saying this is my number one bit of advice? Well, there's three main reasons. Number one, it's a really easy thing to do, right? It's not something really complicated like, devise this awesome revision schedule or whatever. It's basically just turn up. Nice and easy. Second reason this is my number one bit of advice, it has a massive impact on how well you do at uni and on how much you enjoy your time there. I'm going to talk you through that in this video. Third reason why it's my number one tip. This one's a little bit more complicated, but it's worth going into as a bit of background. So if we wind back a few years, over the last, decade or so, attendance at uni has been kind of what you would expect, right? Start of term, everyone's really excited, they've picked their classes, so attendance at the start is high. It's like, 90% in a lecture or something like that. And then as you go throughout the term, attendance slowly drops off because people get exhausted or whatever. So by the end of the term, it might be about 30%. That's pretty standard across most universities. COVID had a massive impact on that. COVID really disrupted the way we learn, the way we teach. It affected school kids and it affected university students. We had to do online teaching for ages. With all the problems of online teaching, loads of students were saying, let us come back in the classroom. So you might have thought that once we got back to in-person teaching, everybody will be straight in there, glad to be over the COVID years back in the classroom. But that isn't what happened. What has in fact happened is COVID has really disrupted the way people learn at universities. So in particular, attendance since we've got back to in-person teaching at university has been really patchy, and I would say really low. So rather than starting the term at like 80 or 90% attendance, my last bunch of lectures at the start of last year had maybe under 50% attendance right in the first class. And then, you still get that drop-off effect. So by the end of the term, I'm getting classes where there's very few students there at all. Last year, I had classes where nobody turned up at all. And, that's saying to me that there's a real issue there, and it very much looks like it's caused by COVID. And as far as I know, I've talked to loads of people about this to try and find out what's going on and what we can do about it. It is a problem across all subjects and across all universities right around the world. So, it's not just me putting people off. Or at least that's what they told me. Before we go any further, I just want to jump in here and say if you're enjoying this content and you want to help me out by supporting the channel, go and take a look at my Ko-Fi page, see what we've got there and see ways in which you can help me out. Okay, so why is learning in person so much better, say, than just watching the videos online, right? So lots of your lecturers, they will record the lectures, audio or video, and then you can go and watch that in your room later on or whatever, okay? So why not just do that? Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons. And I think the main one is you just learn better in person as opposed to just watching it in your own time. Maybe you can do that as well as a top-up when you come to revise. If you missed anything, you can go back to it and watch it again. That's all great. But your main interaction with those ideas, I think it's just so much better for you if you do it in person in the physical lecture. Videos and stuff like that, they're fairly new for online learning, but books aren't. All the information in your lectures is typically in a book. If it was just about getting the information across to you, why wouldn't we say, oh, there's the library, go and read these books and then sit your exam? That obviously wouldn't work. And I think the same kind of thing happens with online videos, right? If we just said to you, there's the information, go and watch them videos and then come and sit your exam, I just don't think that would work out good for you as a student. I mean, it might work well for universities because they'd have to do a lot less effort, right? They just make some videos and give them to you and let you sit your exams and it'll be easy for them. So I'm talking about what is good for you as the student, right? There is something about engaging with ideas in person, in a physical space that kind of activates your thinking, your learning, your memory in a way that just doing it online doesn't. And we kind of see this played out in some of the research and the statistics about online learning. So if we look at how purely online courses work, things like MOOCs, the massive online courses that a lot of universities tried running over the last decade, they had all the information, all the content that would be available in a physical lecture, but they just didn't work very well. And that shows up particularly in the dropout rate. Some of those courses had a 90% dropout rate. So this is like everyone signs up and maybe pays money for these things with good intentions to learn all this stuff, and then nearly everybody dropped out before the end. It's really hard to stick with learning online. You start off with good intentions, other stuff gets in the way, and you kind of psychologically you think, oh yeah, I can do it anytime, right? So I'll do it later, I kind of won't do it at all. That's the way it goes. That's kind of, the way our psychology is. It's pretty much unavoidable unless you are just like an absolute, master at organising yourself. There's something about having a timetable. Here are your lectures. It's Tuesday, 4:00. You've got to go to that lecture in that time. If you miss that, it's gone. So there's a psychological incentive to get there for that time. It keeps you on a schedule. It's just good for your learning. But I think there's more to it than that. You get so much more out of being in a physical space than just kind of picking up on ideas in an attentive way. Because you'll be in that room, it's not just you and the lecturer, there's also all your classmates, right? All the people on that course or taking that module with you. You will chat with them, you'll kind of look at each other's notes, there'll be a 10-minute break in the middle maybe where you chat about kind of what you thought was good or bad about that lecture. Maybe afterwards a group of you, you kind of see that a whole bunch of people are interested in this stuff, so you go grab a coffee and you talk about it. What you're doing there is you're not just kind of learning the information from the lecture, but you're kind of discussing it and digesting it and thinking about different takes on what was right or wrong about it. So when you come to write your essay on that stuff at the end of the term or the end of the year or whatever, you haven't just got a bunch of information that you can regurgitate, the lecturer said this, so I'm going to say the same thing in my essay. You've got a whole bunch of different points of view that you've got from talking to all your friends in the lecture, after the lecture, whatever, that you can then weave into your essay, right? Somebody who can express lots of different points of view on a particular bit of information or a particular idea or argument or whatever, weave them together and then express their own view. That is a much better essay than one that just regurgitates the information. That's one of the main things you get out of being in a physical space, learning together, talking together, all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, by going to the physical lecture and being with all those classmates, you start to feel part of a community of learners. If you're studying, philosophy, psychology, English or whatever, you feel part of the philosophy or psychology or English department. You feel part of that kind of engagement. And that is a big part of doing a degree, right? It's not just about learning the information and, sitting your exams and getting your marks or whatever. Being part of that community, I think, it's an important part of making you feel good about your time there and also about keeping you going when things get tough. If you feel like you're part of a community, it will be easier to get through the hard times as opposed to just someone who's trying to learn by sitting in their room and watching the videos. That might work when things are going well, but when things start going bad, then they can go really bad. You don't feel like you have that community help. That's when people are more likely to drop out. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of reasons relating to improving your learning, improving your experience that I think relate to being there in person, in the lecture, in the seminar. There's a bunch of additional reasons which, they may not be quite so important, but they might factor in, particularly towards the end of your degree, right? So one thing that you really get out of being in a lecture is you kind of get to know the lecturer and they get to know you. If you're there each week and you're asking lots of questions, they get a sense of who you are, the kind of things you're interested in, the kind of questions you ask. You might ask them to write you a reference or, recommend what you should do after your degree. If they don't really know you, you might end up with a kind of a generic reference. But if they've really got to understand the way you think, the way you ask questions in the class, they can write you a very personalized reference that kind of really speaks to your abilities. And, as somebody who reads references, a personalized reference that really talks about what this student can do really jumps out. Generic ones, Yeah, they don't do that. Okay, so in-person teaching, there's going to be lectures. You might also have seminars, smaller groups where you have to go along and discuss material. You might be asked questions by the seminar leader. And that can bring up some additional issues to do with, well, should I really go to this or not? And really, there's two main reasons for that. One is if you haven't done the work, you haven't done the reading, and you're thinking, should I still go? And the other is you feel under pressure, you feel nervous about having to answer questions, and maybe you think, yeah, I don't want to go. So let me talk about those briefly. So suppose your lecturer sets some material to read or some work to do for the seminar, and you're expected to go to the seminar and discuss or present on that work. And, life gets in the way and you haven't done that work and you're thinking, should I go to the seminar or not? Yeah, I get it. It's tricky. I would go to the seminar and just, sit at the back and be honest, right? Say, look, I didn't get the work done, but I'd like to be here anyway. And that's fine. Okay. It's not ideal, but it's fine. You will still get more out of that experience having not done the work, but being there as opposed to just not going there at all. And you might say to yourself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to go to the seminar. I'm going to use that time to catch up on the work. But then what are you going to do with it, right? If the seminar's gone and you haven't gone there, it's kind of like wasted work. You will get more out of it by going to the seminar, even if you haven't done the work. What about the other issue, right? If you're feeling kind of nervous or under pressure, you don't want to talk. Yeah, that happens and that is a real issue. And if you get inside your own head on that stuff, it can really affect the way you experience university life. What you should do in that case is go along and talk to your lecturer or your seminar leader before the seminar or after a seminar, and basically just say, look, I'm feeling really under pressure here. I want to come to these seminars, but I don't want you to ask me questions, or I'll answer a question, I'll put my hand up if I want to answer it, but if I'm looking kind of scared, please don't call on me, I'm nervous, or whatever, okay? They're going to respect that. As a teacher, I don't want you to feel bad in your class. I want you to feel good in your class. So if you come and tell me that you don't want to talk, you don't want to participate, you just want to sit there, that's absolutely fine by me. I would much prefer it that you're there and kind of learning from this stuff than if you're under pressure and then you don't want to turn up. Okay, guys, so that is my number one tip for you starting university in 2023, whether it's your first year or you're coming back for your second or third year, whatever. It's my number one tip because once you get in the swing of it, it's pretty easy to do. It doesn't demand that much of you. And in my experience, it's the number one thing that is going to improve the quality and the enjoyability of your time at university. So I hope you have a really great time at university. I hope you have a great term. If you've got any questions, drop me a comment down below. Thanks to all my Ko-Fi supporters for making this content possible. Thanks to you for watching this far. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you back here soon.